Hello, Tendies, friendies. Welcome back. Welcome back to Tendies Club. Got a great show for you. Have Dr. Doug Baker with us right now. He's waiting in the other room. We'll switch over in a second. He personally knows two people in the Semifilam trials. And I'm going to make sure test. Well, we'll test Doug's in a second as well. He personally knows two people in the Semifilam trials. A very. I'm not going to. Don't want to preview too much. We'll just get right to it. Not an investment advisor. This is not investment advice. Also, we do not represent Cassava Sciences. They have nothing at all to do with this. We're just doing honest patient experiences about the drug. Not touting the drug or representing the company. All right. With that, let's get right to it. Doug Baker. Doug, how are you?
Joe, good, thank you.
And I'm gonna apologize. Let me get rid of this here. Great. And let me, in the chat, can you guys please confirm you can hear both Doug and myself, please? Test. Can you guys, and Doug, can you say hello one more time, please? Can you?
Yes, hello. My name's Doug Baker, 64-year-old ophthalmologist from Columbus, Ohio.
Thank you very much. Can you guys please, can we get a confirmation, please? Can you guys hear us in the chat? Can you please say, yes, we can hear Doug and we can hear Joe? Afternoon. Good afternoon, Eldon. Can you hear me and Doug? Confirmed. Thank you. Okay, great. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, guys, thanks very much. So we have Dr. Doug Baker with us in Columbus, Ohio. Doug knows two people that are currently in the open label Semifilam trials. These are not placebo controlled. They have a 6-month placebo extension at the end, but these are 12-month open label trials. So the patients are definitely on the drug. There's also, just to avoid confusion, Cassava Sciences is also running phase 3 trials at this time. There's two large placebo-controlled phase 3 trials running also at this time. Okay, and with that, Doug, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'm going to get right to it. So can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Well, I'm a 64-year-old ophthalmologist. My specialty is glaucoma. Everybody asks me when I'm going to retire. Hopefully, not for about 7 years or so. I'd like to keep going while I'm mentally and physically okay to do that.
Sure.
How Alzheimer affected my family is my father died at 92 of Alzheimer's, and it was he was my best friend, and he was the best man in my wedding. And the last year and a half, we didn't have a good relationship at all because he thought I went down to South Carolina and raided his bank account and stole all his money.
Wow.
And so for the last year and a half, he looked at me like, how could you steal all my money? And so, Alzheimer's has a special place in my heart, and I feel for those that have families that are dealing with it. And hopefully we can raise the awareness of this trial and this new drug, and so we can help some families.
I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry to hear about that heartbreaking story. Thank you so much, Doug. You personally know two people with Alzheimer's disease that are in the Semifilam open label studies. They're not under your care. As you said, you're an ophthalmologist, but you know two people that are in the Semifilam open label studies. Can you tell us about them, what their symptoms were, and when did they enter the trial?
Yes, I know there's a gentleman, he's about in his early to mid 80s, and he was extremely forgetful. In 1 hour, he would probably repeat himself 10 to 12 times a certain question. He was unsteady from an ambulatory perspective. And he had difficulty comprehending the written word. He lost interest in reading, or if something was read, or if he was reading something, he couldn't really process it. The other individual was a charming late 70-year-old female who became extremely irritable and could not remember names, was forgetting things. But the biggest thing the family had difficulty with is went from a super sweet lady to a get out of her way.
Yeah. And the behavioral issues, we've heard that so often they could be even worse than the cognitive decline. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then both of them then enter. And then I'm sorry, we didn't. I'm not sure. Then when did they enter the trials?
Yeah, they entered the trial. The one individual entered the trial December of 2020, which was a difficult time because that's right in the middle of the pandemic and the vaccines weren't out. And so the family was very brave to sort of go across country to the trial site in just outside of Miami to enter into the study.
Yes.
And the other individual, I believe, was in late January, early February 2021.
Okay, thank you very much. So both long term, about a year. Thanks very much.
Yes.
Yep, thank you. Okay, and then how long did it take? So they've been on for about a year. How long did it take for the changes to become noticeable?
The one individual, the elderly gentleman, it took about 3 months.
3 months.
And then he's had basically steady improvement in all the areas I've listed: ambulatory, reading, as far as repeating himself, forgetfulness, and the other individual, it took about 4 or 5 months. But since then, both of them have had steady improvement in both cognitive and behavioral issues.
That's remarkable to hear. I wanted to mention earlier, just a reminder that we had Dr. Gonzalez Rojas way back after the 2B results. This open label was then an open label after the placebo controlled from a long time ago, and she was the first anecdotal evidence, and she was saying more than a year ago, to our surprise, to our delightful surprise, I forget what her exact words were, patients were getting better, and she had a number of examples. But she said the same thing that Dr. Baker said, and that was that it took a couple of months, and then they started seeing it. Thank you very much, Dr. Baker. And then, very importantly, have there been any adverse effects or downsides?
No, it's a simple 100 milligram pill that they take twice a day. There's no stomach upset. There's no issues at all. I mean, it's just like taking a vitamin, and easily administered and easily tolerated, and no side effects.
Well, I mean,
It's remarkable.
Yeah, a miracle. Yeah, that sounds amazing. And then, okay, so then it's been about a year for each of them, a little bit longer, a little bit shorter in each case. And then have they seemed to level off or decline a little bit or continue to get better? And before I finish that question, we know that Alzheimer's disease is a disease of continual decline. So the patient should always be getting worse. And so have you seen a level off or decline or an improvement?
Well, Joe, I just got off the phone with one of the family members prior to coming on the show. And basically, they've noticed from the 3 to 4 month mark a steady improvement. It's not rapid, but every month they seem to get better. And from a ambulatory standpoint, walking briskly without falling, they're not worried about him falling anymore.
Unbelievable.
He might repeat himself twice in an hour versus 10 or 12 times. When they were passing around sort of some lab work on one of his brothers, he told his brother that he's going to have to stop eating bacon and eggs because his cholesterol was too high.
And this is the guy that had lost interest in reading because he had a hard time comprehending reading.
Right. And so now all of a sudden he's scolding his brother for his elevated cholesterol levels.
Unbelievable.
And the other lady we just saw at a Greek choir concert for Christmas, and she could not remember names and was extremely irritable. She was back after a year to her charming personality and called everyone around the table by their name. I'm not quite sure I could do that, but that was after a year of treatment.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, and then there also Alzheimer's disease is a big disease for caretakers. Can you speak about the families and loved ones and what their reaction has been?
Well, it probably affects every single family in this entire world, whether they're in this, a facility or whether the family is taking care of them. So, with those people or families that have a member with Alzheimer's, I would strongly encourage them to enter the trial. I mean, basically, you have a 50% chance of improvement. Whereas if you don't go into the trial, you have no chance of an improvement because it's a steady march downward.
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's a steady march downward, and it's a disease that's always terminally ill. I'm so glad you brought up the trials. Everyone, there's rethink-alls.com or to go to Cassava Science's website, and it links out from there. If you have a loved one with Alzheimer's disease, these phase 3 trials are enrolling right now. It's the only way to get Semifilam. This drug is available if you go into if you go into these trials and you get randomized into these placebo-controlled trials. And like Dr. Baker said, the only way to get this drug is there's a 50% chance if you enter these trials and you help bring this drug to market. So please go to that website or send that website around. Thank you, Dr. Baker. Thank you for bringing that up.
The other thing, Joe, is the sooner they complete enrollment, the sooner this will get approved.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's one of these things that, we can't recruit people fast enough. And the faster that they recruit, the faster the results will come out.
Yeah.
And, for a drug that has no side effects, I mean, zero, why not? I don't know what the downside would be.
They had a better side effect profile than placebo in their placebo-controlled. So great point. What is the downside? Yeah.
I mean, if this was 3 years earlier, I would have had my father in that study in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Okay, and then so Cassava, and so we just talked about this. There's the randomized trials. Okay, and then so thank you for that. And then as an ophthalmologist, this is something that we had mentioned off camera. Can you speak about, you treat a lot of glaucoma, and it's again, this is a disease of decline. Can you talk about treating glaucoma and the importance of getting to it early as a sort of a comparison to Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah, sure, Joe. It's interesting. The glaucoma is elevated eye pressure that damages the optic nerve. Now, the optic nerve is the largest nerve in the body. It goes straight from the brain right to the eye. And if you treat somebody with advanced glaucoma, it's difficult. On the other hand, if you pick it up early before the optic nerve has much damage, it's significantly easier to treat. And the same thing I would assume is accurate with Alzheimer's. If we can pick this up early at the very mild stages, certainly you have a better chance of recovering quicker and staying cognitively better versus, if you're on your last legs.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of another reason to get this awareness elevated and out there so people know about it.
Absolutely. And I wanted to sort of segue into Cassava Sciences also has funding from the National Institute on Aging for a blood test. Right now, it's hard to diagnose Alzheimer's disease, and you must wait until a person already has symptoms until you notice. But there's a blood test Cassava Sciences is developing with funding from the government that may be able to detect Alzheimer's disease in the blood years ahead of time. and very cheap and easily without a spinal tap or anything intrusive or painful like that. So then they possibly could get Semifilam to people much earlier before symptoms manifest. So I wanted to bring that. Thank you very much. To everyone out there, please, Dr. Baker has been gracious enough to take questions from everyone. Please be thoughtful and keep in mind everything he's already said and ask thoughtful follow-up questions. And with that, I'm gonna go to. We have a lot of. So the very first thing I put in the chat was, please don't put anything in the chat because I want to open it up to questions. And the chat is full of stuff. So let me find a good question here. All right, I'm just going to go to the end. There's so many questions. If you guys can please ask follow-up questions, any questions you have for Dr. Baker. So I'll tell you, there's some thank yous here. So there's a lot of thank you, Dr. Baker. So we'll just pick some random ones. So Yulia says, thank you very much, Dr. Baker. Thank you so much. Jim LeChant says, thanks, Dr. Baker, for doing this, especially since there were so many naysayers on Yahoo who doubted you. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is, we found you because you were getting the word out. So that's how we found you. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been posting this for probably 9 months, off and on.
And so Alice, we have such good, we have 259 people here. So I think some of the people are sort of new to the story. And so Alice is asking, why are there people trying to stop having this drug move forward? Well, we saw a family testimonial this morning from Hillary Metz, and she was saying that that her father is in the trials, and similar to what Dr. Baker was saying, just terrific, amazing results. And she's a lawyer, and she flatly said Big Pharma is threatened by this company because the drug works. And I don't know if those were exact words, but she said Big Pharma is threatened by the company. So that is there's Alzheimer's disease is the largest unmet medical need in the world. It's a very, very large market, and it's growing. So there's a lot of literally trillions of dollars at stake. And so just Dr. Baker, just a lot of thank yous here. So thank you, Dr. Baker, for taking the time to share this amazing news. So thank you. Thanks, Dr. Baker, for sharing this with us. If you do have any, these thank yous, I'll keep reading them. They're wonderful. There's people that are asking about how they can help and to send letters to the FDA and things like that, and that's wonderful. But while Dr. Baker's here, I want to, if there's any questions for Dr. Baker, please. So a lot of thank yous, Dr. Baker. So San Luis Obispo says, thank you, Dr. Baker. And then Matt Knocktrab says, would the family be willing or able to come speak with us here? Do we know anything about that?
Well, I spoke with one of the family members, as I mentioned, right before I went on the air, just to make sure I was accurately, depicting what was going on, and they may be willing to, come on the air. I think they're checking with Lindsey Burns to see, exactly. They don't want to, do anything that might, jeopardize the CMS study.
Excellent, right.
So, the most important thing to them is obviously their family member, continues forward. And so, but I think they're certainly the biggest advocates, a lot bigger advocate than I am. So they might be willing to come on the show, and that would be certainly more powerful than me relating this secondhand.
Well, your anecdotes and your own personal story, I thought were very powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, and thank you very much for bringing this story to us. And so you might link us up with that family. And that's terrific. So to the family, if you speak and you are able to come speak, please come speak with us. We would love to have you. Thank you.
Joe, I will forward them your email.
Excellent.
Andy's email.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, we have a question here. Thank you very much, PJ. Dr. Baker, as a medical professional, How concerned are you about corruption getting in the way of approval for Semifilam? Thank you very much for coming on and sharing.
Well, I mean, I think that there is significant corruption going on right now. I mean, I read about, SAVA and Cassava Sciences daily. I've read about it for the last year. And for a citizen's petition to be filed, when there's absolutely no side effects, is really unforgivable. And I think all the disinformation out there, it's even scaring patients from entering into the phase 3 trial. And so I think this is basically criminal, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And it's people that were entrusted that's in some of the highest places to be looking out for people that are not. So thank you very much for your candid answer. So I don't know if we know this. Would you happen to know? So Samir says, would you happen to know if the two patients you referenced going for a spinal tap, which is needed for the 12-month biomarker data? So they're after 12-month data. After 12 months, they're taking a spinal tap of 25 of the patients. Do you happen to know if I guess the man was one of those?
No, I do not know that. And they are just finishing the 1 year.
Yeah.
So they're entering the CMS phase of the next trial, within the next month or two.
So they'll be randomized, and as you said,
yeah, I don't really know any details about their
the biomarkers.
What the study is collecting. The only thing I know is sort of the anecdote, stories that I've seen and heard.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And so just David Arnold is just agreeing with you here and saying, my mom had AD and she had a lot of behavioral issues. It was on a cocktail of drugs. With Semifilam, was there a reduction in the need for other behavioral controlling drugs? Oh, so this is a question. It's a great question. I'm glad I took it. Thank you, David. So Doug, he's asking, because there's like a number of, there's behavioral issues, there's insomnia. So a lot of times people are on a cocktail of other drugs for those behavioral issues. Do you happen to know if the woman, I suppose, was she on other drugs for behavior and able to come off?
She was on no treatment before, and this is the only treatment that she's been on. That's part of the study.
Okay.
And basically those have resolved. And it took about 4 to 5 months in her, so it took a little longer. But the personality and the behavioral issues, which were significant, are gone. Yeah. So you can imagine how worried the family is if they're randomized to placebo and they start seeing the extreme irritation reappear. I mean, that's frightening. And Joe, as we talked about before, time is important. Yes. And most of these patients are elderly, and so every month, every 6 months, with their family, it's important to have meaningful time, not just time.
You bring up such an important thing, and that's why I think compassionate use is so important. So with donepezil, when donepezil was approved in 2003, it was good for 6 months, and then it fell off a cliff. They tested it for 18. It's only good for 6 months, but it was approved anyway. So I'm hoping with the Semifilam phase 3 trials, it's a year and a half. I'm hoping with a 6-month look-in, they say great results. You don't need more than 6 months to be approved. Move everyone to compassionate use after 6 months. So hopefully there won't be anyone that it takes longer than, there's no more, hopefully there's just no trials. They're placebo controlled, they're longer than 6 months. So.
Yeah, if it's not approved, there certainly is going to be significant corruption.
Yeah, agreed.
In my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. My opinion as well. And I think you're amongst a lot of people that agree with you here. So we've got another question here. So whether the two patients are continuing in the CMS study, if yes, please give more talk. If not, I'm sorry, I think you did say this. They are now continuing into the CMS, correct?
Yes, both
Yes.
of them are, and both of them have a 50% chance of getting the drug and 50% placebo. And that's why the families are, actually both families tried to, they were actually begging the company for compassionate use because they know it's worked. And unfortunately, the company is not allowed to do that. You have to go into the 50% placebo, 50% drug trial, and so that's why they're frightened.
And if it was approved, they wouldn't have to do that. They need the placebo trials to be filled in order to get approval. So so Cassava has to do that. It's the FDA that has to
Exactly.
budge. It's the FDA that has to budge. It's the safety
Exactly.
yeah, and it's the safety that's so good. It's why it should be on the market. We know Alzheimer's disease is always terminal, and we know the drug is safe. So get it to market and keep testing it in open label studies if you want to. But so thank you very much.
Right. I mean, basically, what is the downside?
Big
I don't know
pharma
what
would
it.
make less money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the patient and family downside? I should have said.
Yeah. There's none. There's none. There's none. And then thank you very much. And then Jay says, what would you consider a fair price to charge for this medicine? I think this is a good question as a doctor. What would you consider a fair price to charge for this medicine? And to set this up for everyone, aducanumab was charged at $56,000 and they cut it in half to $28,000 that after so much controversy.
Well, Joe, I've thought about this. Hopefully, they can make it very reasonable. I mean, down in the $2 a day. Um, and the reason I say that is because there are so many people that need this.
Yeah.
And we don't want to bankrupt the insurance companies because there's going to be billions of people on this. And they're going to be in all sorts of different countries. And, I hope the pharmaceutical company doesn't, select sort of an elite population. We want people with insurance to get it. We want people without insurance to get it. And, hopefully it'll be like a vitamin someday.
I couldn't agree more. With a safety, sorry, to go back to the safety profile again, why not? If it's
I mean, if there's, and basically when I heard Remy speak, he said there's a whole panel of biomarkers that that this Simufilam affects. And with that, and you can pick this up early, there'll be people in their 60, 61, 2, 3 that don't have overt signs of Alzheimer's, but let's say their filament A is low and they have a significant number of biomarkers and there's no side effects. Personally, I'd be taking this as a prevent Alzheimer's vitamin. And so I hope the company makes it very reasonable because they will make their money back in quantity of sales.
The whole world is moving into that age range. And like you said, literally billions of people, could be taking this. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so Captain John says, Dr. Baker, lost my dad to Alzheimer's too. We need this for all others who love and want their dads around.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain John. Solomon says, thank you, Dr. Baker, for all your efforts, and I'm sorry to hear about your father and friend. Do we know the age range of Alzheimer's and how long it takes to completely degrade the brain?
I don't, I'm not a neurologist. I'm a glaucoma doctor, and I don't know too much outside that field. I just know that I've seen observations and family stories from these individuals.
Yep. And so, Solomon, I think that on average, it's a really wide range from the time somebody, from what I've seen when I wrote an article on Cassava a year ago, that at the time the data was from the time somebody's diagnosed, it's a wide range of like 3 to 14 years is the average. It worked out to like 6.5 years, so might have been 3 to 11 years or something like that. But if I remember correctly, it worked out to like 6.5 average years of life expectancy from diagnosis or something like that. So, and then Justin says, in your opinion, Dr. Baker, what are the odds the patients you know are improving due to the placebo effect?
Well, I don't know because they're not taking a placebo. I am sure they're getting the drug because they were in the 2B portion of the study. And so, there is no placebo.
Right.
What they're concerned about is entering into the continuing
Yes.
maintenance study where they have a 50% chance of getting a placebo. And so I'm 100% sure that their improvement is due to the drug, because if not, they would have deteriorated rather than improved.
There you go. Yeah. I think they were saying that even though they know it was the drug, could they think they're getting better, so they do, was the question. But like you say, it's a disease of continual decline, and their state was already bad, and they got significantly better. Yeah. Good. So thank you.
Because it's, that's not possible.
Yep. Agreed. Thank you. Question from Rainer. Do you share Remy's optimal scenario, taking Semifilam prophylactically before AD becomes worse?
Well, if they prove the biomarkers, which I would, thinking that they started with the biomarkers and then moved, to find a drug that fit that. I mean, if I had low filament A and with biomarker proof of that, absolutely, I'd take it.
Me too.
I mean, I wouldn't wait till I had any problems.
Neither would I.
Just like, if you have glaucoma and a high eye pressure, you treat the eye pressure before you get damage to the nerve.
Yeah.
And, Alzheimer's, we're talking neural tissue that's damaged because the scaffolding is deteriorating. So if my scaffolding was deteriorating, and they had biomarker proof of that, absolutely, I'd take it prophylactically.
Myself as well. Yes, thank you. Terrific answer. Thank you. And then Michael Klein says, so do you know if the two people are part of the first 50 patients and whether they entered the CMS? So we covered the portion about, so the one is just entering the CMS now, and the one will in a couple months, or a month or two or whatever, will enter soon. But do you happen to know, because they released data on the first 50 patients, and that was a really big thing, do you happen to know if they were part of that cohort of first 50 patients?
Yeah, I am sure they were not. They're part of the 2B study.
No, yes. But in that 2B, they had, it started as, it's up to like 200 people total. It started as 50 people, and they released data on the first 50. Do you happen to know if they were a part of the first 50?
No, they were not.
Oh, okay.
They were not part of the first 50.
Okay, super. Thank you. So that's good news, because we saw the terrific data on the first 50, and now here's good anecdotal evidence from after that. So that's good news. So this is an interesting study design. The CMS, this is a good question, Charlie L. Thank you. This CMS, I've never seen a study like this, where you're on the drug and then you randomize off of it to see what happens. What do you think? If that's a CMS, the phase 3 is the traditional study of placebo arm and drug arm. But what do you think of this interesting CMS design?
Well, I mean, as a friend of the family, and I know that, to me, it seems cruel that you would take, somebody off a drug that is improving. I don't think you need to prove that there's deterioration in Alzheimer's. I think that's a given.
You're right.
And so to take somebody off a medicine that's helping them, and if you can prove through testing that it has helped them, and the family can back that up with their observation, I think it's cruel to take people off that when you already know the normal deterioration of Alzheimer's.
I completely agree. And I go back to Cassava Sciences doesn't need to yield, the FDA does. So I just completely agree with you. And the only way they cannot do these placebo trials is if the FDA yields and helps get this drug to market. So I agree with you. It is that's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about with that CMS is that I was really hoping that the larger phase 3 trials, and then so for the sake of all those 2,000 people, but then for everyone in the world to get the drug to market sooner, if CMS showed placebo-controlled 6-month data, that would then when we get a look in at 6 months, that'd be confirming another 6 months of another placebo-controlled confirmation. So maybe that would give it more weight to move to compassionate use in the phase 3s after 6 months. Might be an upside. So a terrible thing for the families that are going to. And another thing I wanted to say about having hopefully for these people is that with such good improvements, hopefully it keeps them at a level good enough that for 6 months of decline, because they get the drug after that again, they get compassionate use. If you go through the CMS, you get the drug again. So then they get compassionate use. So hopefully it lifts them up enough where they can make it 6 months. And it seems like that's not too much to ask, maybe. Do you have an opinion about that, about whether that might be too hopeful or maybe a good hope?
Well, no, I think that's good. I mean, basically, you'd have at least a year and a half data on those patients, and so you'd have a group that's been on it for a year and a half, and then you have a group that's been on it for a year, and certainly at a year and a half, you could say, "Wow, there is a difference here," and that could get it approved faster.
Yeah.
I get the rationale. It's just difficult to tell the family that, hey, you're going to be part of the guinea pig, because you know the natural history of Alzheimer's.
Yes. Well said. Thank you. Yes. So Charlie L, great question, and Dr. Doug, thank you very much. That's a great answer. So here's a question from Charlie L again. What data do you think it will take for the FDA to approve the drug?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not the FDA. I would hope that a year and a half of, or even further than that now, of no side effects, and you have documented improvement, in patients. I would think that would be good enough at this point, because there's been nothing like that. No drug, to my knowledge, has shown improvement. I think it was in 66% of the patients at 1 year, and another maybe 20% did not decline at the usual rate. So basically, 88% of the people, benefited from that drug with no side effects. And so,
It's incredible.
I mean, it doesn't take a genius to say, anybody's family that had Alzheimer's would put them on that medicine.
No question about it. Yeah, 100%.
With no side effects, what's the downside?
What is the downside? Why is it not on market? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly, why is it not available for compassionate use at this point? I mean, the alternative is people are deteriorating. Yes. And they don't have much time, and the time they do have is not quality time. So it's sad.
It's very, very, very sad. It's sad and something. So we're trying to make a lot of noise about it. And so while we're at it, so something we can do for everyone that's new here, we have a petition. It's in the details of this video, the petition for change.org. There's a lot of corruption here. There's a Department of Justice document linked in that petition. We'd like you to sign the petition and share it with everybody, because the reason this drug is not on the market is probably related to the short attack, and there's a lot of incentive to go after this company because they are threatened by this drug, and we want to do something about it. And so please sign that document. We've done a number of other things like contact Congress people and stuff like that. But please sign the petition and pass it around, share the petition while we're at it. So thank you, Doug.
Joe, on that note, I have a good friend of mine is the CEO of a pharmaceutical company, not ones that are competing with Alzheimer's. And I asked him to look at Sava, and this was like, nine months ago. He goes, oh, I'm not going to waste my time because that's the graveyard for pharmaceutical companies, Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's,
Everybody
yes.
loses
Yep.
there.
Yep.
And so they spent billions and billions, and now all of a sudden, a little tiny company
I
with
know.
12 employees is hit a walk-off grand slam, and they're saying, "No, wait a minute, how
Yeah.
can that be when we spent so much money?"
Yeah.
And so so you can see it's a multi-billion-dollar market,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of unscrupulous people out there.
You can say that again. You can say that. Yeah. Thank you very much. Well said. Well said. Thank you. And here's an interesting question from Joseph below. Dr. Baker, sorry for your loss and thank you for helping the cause. Do the families of these patients understand the amount of FUD? And for people that don't, that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. This campaign against to make people afraid. So do the patients, do the families of these patients understand the amount of FUD against cassava in this treatment?
Oh, they absolutely do,
Oh,
and they are heartbroken by the amount of resistance that they're getting. If you had someone that was improving on a drug with no side effects, you would think everybody would be cheering, and everyone would be on the side of saying, "How can we get this approved?" Whereas you've got people, all they're doing is creating fear,
yes.
and oh yeah, they're acutely aware of this, and they are, you know, it's very disconcerting.
Very disconcerting. Yes, then the campaign was waiting when cassava released its 9-month data. The big pharma and everyone else was waiting to have this huge fear campaign. No one wanted to help them bring this miracle drug for the patients. There was no one trying to help patients. They weren't thinking about patients at all. They were
No,
thinking about
no.
the opposite of what was good for patients. So Joseph below, and I'm so sorry, Dr. Baker. It's been 42 minutes. I asked you for half an hour. Uh, do you have any more
Yeah.
time for us? Like it's been.
Um, I do. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm a free bird for a while, so if there's a few more questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, thanks so much. And then Ein Reedy asks, do you have any relationship, professional or personal, with cassava management?
No, I wish I did. I would have got in earlier. As far as I am a Saba long, so I want to make that point.
Yep. As am
But
I. Yep.
uh, no, I do not know anybody
Yep. Yep. Thank you for that. Thank you for
or
that.
have a relationship with anyone.
Yep. Yep. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then Alexis, about the FUD. Alexis wants to know: do they know that's Big Pharma doing the FUD? Do they understand who, like the one, like Hillary Metz was saying, the Big Pharma is afraid, they're threatened by this, so she understands. Or do you think the other families understand that it's Big Pharma that's doing the FUD?
Well, I've spoken with a few of the family members. They feel that it is because there are competing drugs,
Okay.
and the sooner Semifilam gets on the market, they're going to lose money.
Yes.
And so if it's delayed, maybe they can get their drug approved and at least make a little money before Semifilam knocks them out of the water.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, unfortunately, it's all about the money. It's not about the patient care. And, I think, we need to put as much pressure as we can on the FDA because there is no reason this hasn't been approved thus far.
Thank you for
None.
thank you for that reality check, because I feel like we've sort of conceded ground, like, okay, well, now we'll keep trying, hopefully we'll get BTD. No, it should be on the market now as people are needing it desperately. Thank you. I couldn't agree
Absolutely.
more. Thank you. And then Pete Cigarn says, Dr. Baker, thanks for doing this. Any word for those who are trying to stop phase 3? And any encouraging words for AD patients and their family members? So any word for the people that are trying to stop these trials?
Do I have any word for the people that are trying to stop these trials?
Yeah.
Well, they always say, karma's a bitch. And so, if you're doing your best to stop a treatment that can save lives, and more importantly, it can give quality time to people in their later years, then I would not want that when I try to enter the pearly gates on my conscience.
Yeah, me neither. Thank you. And I agree with Tina Rodriguez says it's called crimes against humanity, what they're doing.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Well, it's they're putting money ahead of lives and patients' feelings, and it's too bad.
It's revolting. Yeah. Thank you. Steve Horvath says, has Dr. Doug Baker, heard any other testimonials from other doctors or families?
No, these are the only two patients that I know, and I know their families. I don't know anything else.
Thank you. So Matt Knocktrab says, we can hear the pain in your voice, Dr. Baker. Thank you for being so brave and standing up to fight for cassava. Thank you, Dr. Baker.
Welcome.
Alex says, do you think adjusting the dosage of Semifilam might have more of a positive benefit for those not responding well with current dosing?
Well, one, I have no idea. And, I'm sure there have been a lot of, evaluation of different doses. As far as, if you have 88% of the people that are better off taking it at 1 year, that's a pretty high number.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether elevating the dose would cause toxicity. I think they're also doing the trial with 50 milligrams versus 100 milligrams. Yeah. And so, as far as that, I would have no idea.
Yep. Thank you. The one idea that I had, and I ran this by another doctor, and they said it sounded good, it sounded reasonable, is that the drug has a 4 to 6 hour half-life. And so instead of taking more, you could just take it, rather than take it every 12 hours, you could take it every 6 hours, and there'd probably be no buildup. And the toxicity profile is good anyway, but you would not expect any buildup, and you'd probably be safe doing that. And so you could probably expect to get better faster. It'd be reasonable anyway. Does that sound about right to you?
Well, I'm not sure. As I said, I take care of glaucoma, and anytime you ask somebody to do something 3 times a day, they don't do it.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. So, compliance is an issue.
Yes, it is.
Yep. So as far as if you can do something twice a day and be religious about it, then that's probably what they should stick with.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Terrific answer. Thank you. Thank you. CQ says, question for Dr. Baker. As a physician who has taken the Hippocratic Oath, how shocked are you by Doctors Pitt and Brett, the doctors behind the citizens petition? How shocked are you at the doctors who are driving lots of negative fear tactics?
Oh, it's in my opinion, it's criminal. Yeah,
I agree.
It's they've lost their way, and they're all they can think about is the finances. And unfortunately, as a physician, you're supposed to care about the family. And the biggest thing, you do your best. You can't always cure, but, you absolutely never do any harm. Right. And, and so, they've lost their way, unfortunately.
Yep. Unfortunately. Thank you. Well said. Thank you. From Jacques, Dr. Baker, would you agree that with Alzheimer's being a debilitating disease, that a safe drug such as SAVA that has gone through two phases of trials and shown efficacy and improvement receive breakthrough therapy designation?
Absolutely. I
Absolutely.
mean, I I mean, I can't figure out what's taken the FDA so long. The only thing I can figure out is that, big pharma is paying somebody off
Yep.
to put the brakes on it.
I
And
unfortunately I agree. Unfortunately, I
it's
completely
sad to
agree.
say.
We've been talking about, so we've had some people in the community go to Amy Klobuchar, who's lost her father Alzheimer's disease, and I think we're talking about doing a bigger push to recruit her and possibly get her involved and try to get the FDA to move. So I just couldn't agree more that it's the FDA that's being intractable and not for good reasons. So Gary A, got to ask you to do a little, maybe a little math guessing here. Percentage wise, what do you think the two patients' percentage increase in cognition from baseline? So ADAS Cog, we had those increases of 5 to 10% from baseline. I think it was. Would you have any? You may not, but would you happen to have any guess of what their increase might have been?
You mean what's the percentage improvement from the baseline when they entered the study?
Yes, like we got really good data from some, and do you have, like, based on their level of improvement? Do you have a guess of where they might fall as far as what percentage? That's what the question's asking.
Oh, yeah, I think they're, at a year, I bet they've had probably 80% improvement from where they were.
From the way you talk, from being really unstable and unable to walk to being they don't worry about walking anymore. Repeating yourself 10 to 12 times down to 2 or 3, and then take disinterested in reading because it's too confusing, to analyzing lab work and scolding somebody offhand.
Right.
80% may be low. Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, the individual that I know is extremely smart person.
yeah.
Um, and so, his able to, analyze lab work is nothing. But from where he was a year previous, he could not do that.
How
And so
sad.
I'd say, yeah, it's at least 80% improvement,
Yeah.
with no side effects. It's like taking a vitamin.
Wow.
People take, vitamins for their eyes twice a day.
Yeah. 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 Great. And just a comment from Tana here. If FDA remains corrupt, the EMA would be too glad to approve it. So she's saying let's go to Europe if the FDA won't play, or if the FDA is going to be corrupt. And Tiffany says it's heartbreaking. They need to approve this as soon as possible. I couldn't agree more, Tiffany and Tana, both of you. Uh, so great question from Lawrence here. Now this may not be, it's just a good question for us to talk about anyway. It's okay if you don't have an answer. But Lawrence says, as a community of citizens deeply saddened by the coordinated attack to halt trials, how can we all help? Will letters to FDA accelerate the action to dismiss the petition and approval?
Joe, you probably know better than I. Um, I'm happy to help in that effort
Massively.
also. I don't know what it's going to take to do it. Certainly, honest reporting of the data has not done it.
No.
so, so but it's something that absolutely. The more people that are aware, and the more people that are advocates for Sava, the sooner this will get on the market.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So I couldn't agree more. So yeah, I think the answer is yes to everything legal that you think might help do it. Yeah. So letters to the FDA couldn't hurt. and especially we do stuff in coordinated ways. I really think like, because we've done so many things as a community. That change.org petition, I think, is a really good one. Letters to the FDA is a great one. I think going to the FDA with Amy Klobuchar, for example, would be huge. So if we can get a politician in our corner, then go to the FDA, could be a good one maybe. But thank you for that question. Thank you for bringing it up, and thank you for fielding it, Dr. Baker.
Joe, I was just thinking, I know those two neurology journals came out
Yeah.
and said that the data, was accurate. I mean, it would be, I wonder if the editor of those neurology magazines would be able to write the FDA and say, hey, we've reviewed the data. And maybe they could meet with them and say, hey, what's the holdup?
I love it.
Maybe the FDA should have to prove why they're holding it up versus the other way around.
You know what? Really, with COVID, I mean, there was not a whole lot of testing going on with that beforehand, and they sent it all around the world. Not saying it was the wrong thing to do, but Alzheimer's disease is always fatal, and COVID's not always fatal.
Joe, let me make one other comment if I could. Another interesting thing is that these patients are improving with COVID out there. I mean,
great point.
They've been isolated, and that's when people really deteriorate, when they don't have social interaction.
Yeah.
And so, despite isolation,
great point.
They've improved.
That's such a great point. Social interaction is so important. And while they're cut off with COVID, I was thinking we were going to say that some of them must have caught COVID and done poorly. Great point. While they're isolated, they're improving. That's such an important point. I didn't think of that. Thank you. That's such an important point. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And it's a San Luis Obispo saying, so the general consensus is this should be approved for compassionate use. And just to make it clear, it has to be approved for the market. They can't do compassionate use because they're trying to enroll placebo trials. No one will enter a placebo trial if there's compassionate use available. So it's the FDA that has to just say, you guys can go to market now. Tom Lu says, question, if they gave Saba too much trouble, why can't it move to Thailand and get rid of these red tapes? So someone else is talking about international. So I'm not sure if you have any comment on taking it internationally. You might not.
I'm just a glaucoma guy. I have no knowledge of that.
Yep. Sorry. I saw a question mark and I got excited. I was like, oh, a question. And I clicked on it before I read it. That we've actually had that question. So Dr. Baker, magnificent answer, says, Dr. Baker, do you expect that if a person is discontinued from taking the pill, the repairs might last longer than immediate decline? So do you think that they will have, because it's sort of an interesting, repairing misfolded proteins, the structural filament A's, sort of an interesting, how long will those stay fixed is an interesting question. Do you have any view on that?
Well, I wish I knew. I would have no clue.
Yeah.
The only thing I would hope is that it would have, it's taken a while to build up the scaffolding, and hopefully it won't, deteriorate after a month or two. It would be nice if it, I'm sure there's going to be some decline. I just don't know the rate of decline.
Yeah. I sure am hoping for all the families and everyone, but all the families coming out of the open label, that they get a good time of a good delay. So Gary asks a good question here. Or maybe it's a good question. Gary A says, Dr. Baker, how well do you know the patients in terms of their Alzheimer level? Part of the fudsters like Adrian H are saying that patients were cherry picked.
No, that's completely inaccurate. And let let me tell you the story how the first patient got there. The family's brother, who's a science researcher, found out about cassava sciences, mentioned that to the family. And this is in December, when right in the middle of the pandemic, December 2020,
Yep.
there was no vaccine out. And the family called the neurologist in charge in Florida and basically asked the neurologist, is it worth it to bring an elderly family member across many states? Because if they got COVID, that would probably do them in. And the neurologist in charge of the study said, if it was my family member, I would make the trip. I've never seen anything like this, and I've been doing this over 20 years.
Wow.
And so basically, this family went from Ohio to Florida to be in this study. And so that is absolutely BS about cherry picking, because you don't cherry pick someone 6 or 7 states away.
No, not at all. Thanks very much. Thank you. So really, that's amazing. Thank you for relating that story. Thank you very much, Dr. Baker. Here's a question. Again, I'm not, this is just a good question in general. I'm sorry to sort of bounce general stuff off of you, but it's being a doctor. The question, can these patients bring their experience and concern to the congressperson? Can these patients, I think it'd be really powerful if one of these patients who couldn't really read before or even really comprehend, if they could maybe just even a video message to the people saying, I'm okay now, or I'm getting better now. What do you think about that? Would that be a possibility?
Oh, I don't know. It's a patient confidentiality issue, and that's definitely a HIPAA issue. Yeah. And so they would have to come forward and say, hey, this is where I was. This is my improvement. And I don't know if that would change anything. And the individuals that have it, I mean, they're very bright people, and so they don't really want to be tagged with Alzheimer.
Yeah, I
if
got
I
you.
had it, if I had it, I really wouldn't want to be a poster boy for that.
You're right. I never thought of that. Great. Yeah.
So I think we need to let the science speak for itself, and we need to get the advocacy elevated so the FDA and the people that are trying to stall this can't sweep the approval under the rug.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great insight and very well said. Thanks very much, Dr. Baker. So we've seen data from 50 people. So Nick Reitman says, the data from phase 2 looks great, but do you feel that a 50-person study is large enough to feel confident that the drug works?
Well, it certainly needs further investigation, but there's another 150 people that are probably almost a year out. And so now you've got 200 people. And
along with 10 years,
is that enough?
We have 10 years of it, including the placebo control as well. Those biomarkers in 2 different studies, 3 different studies now. Biomarkers, yeah.
So I think that at the very least, after these patients of the phase 3 have been in 6 months, if that mirrors the 2A and B results, then it would be criminal not to approve it.
I couldn't agree more. That's the word. I bet we'll get pushback for that word, but that's the right word. It's what it is, and a serious criminal thing as well. Thank you. Just a comment about Senator Klobuchar. We need to get Senator Klobuchar to do a hearing in Congress on AD and have those who have taken Semifilam to testify. So again, you bring up a good point about people not wanting to be tagged, but if there were, for people that might want to, that I think it's an interesting idea.
Oh yeah, sure. It would be powerful.
Yeah, yeah. But you bring up a great point I didn't think of. And then we're just hearing from a cardiologist here, Subri. As a cardiologist, I believe it is paramount to start treatment at early stages of any disease to achieve maximum benefit. This is why Sava and hopefully Savadex will be a game changer.
I agree 100%.
Thank you. Yep. So just like you said with glaucoma. And then Patrick Nolan says, I'm one of those caregivers and family members, and I'm livid about these fudsters.
Oh yeah, wow. Does that caregiver, whoever they're taking care of, do they qualify to be in the phase 3 study?
That's a terrific question, Patrick. I hope that I haven't followed your story closely, but I've seen what you sent me to Amy Klobuchar. I'm sorry, I actually haven't read it yet. I'm sorry about that, but thank you so much for sending that to me. Patrick's so involved. This is Patrick Nolan talking to us, Dr. Baker. So Patrick's so involved. I'm sure that he has, but yeah, Patrick, and everyone else, as a reminder, those trials are enrolling, and and they need to be enrolled in order to get this drug to market as well. So for your own family and for everyone, thank you. From Ryan B, any thoughts on Semifilam being combined with another treatment?
Well, I wouldn't know. I know there's many factors for Alzheimer's, and could be vascular related. I'm sure it's not just the scaffolding breaking down. But again, I'm not a neurologist. But the I'm sure there's probably other areas that could benefit just from one single drug. On the other hand, maybe this is a triple instead of a home run, so we might need another hit to do something. But at the end of the day, what a phenomenal leadoff this would be.
Yeah, very big, very much so. Yeah. So it's great answer. Yeah. So by itself, it could be most of the way, and then if something else wants to help out, terrific. Thank you. And then you related the story of how your male acquaintance ended up in the study. Did you relate the story of how the female acquaintance ended up in the studies?
They're they know each other, so it's part of a Greek community, and so it was sort of word of mouth.
Interesting.
And the one individual had no side effects, started to feel better, and they investigated it. And the second family said, well, geez, we have a patient that's extremely irritable, cannot remember names. Why shouldn't we do it? So and they really respected the first individual that went in. I mean, that family is a very accomplished, bright family. And so they knew that if they went in, they had done their homework prior to going into, a trial. And so they respected that, and they said, well, it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
Yeah. That's great to hear. So for everybody out there, when they heard how this person was doing, they entered the trial. Kasava's trying to get these trials enrolled right now. Please spread the word about these stories of these people doing so much better, people will, a lot of people are dealing with Alzheimer's disease, and we can help get these trials enrolled. Thank you very much, Dr. Baker. Thanks very much. And so that came from a question from Amit. So thank you, Amit. And then Rainer says, question for Dr. Baker. Do you think a big pharma partnership could be the solution to get Semifilam approved as soon as possible?
Well, I'm not smart enough in that arena to know. It would make sense that it wouldn't hurt them. They certainly, there's multiple episodes about, big companies having more clout with the FDA than little companies. Yeah. So I don't think, the question is, how much would a pharmaceutical company pay for, probably, in my opinion, I bet this is going to be the biggest selling drug of our lifetime.
I completely agree. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so you just answered this question, but because you just answered it with such a great answer, I'm going to sort of put the question just came by here. Dr. Baker, have you seen anything like this for a drug in your field as in your years of practice?
Well, again, I'm a glaucomatologist. Yeah. I'm not a neurologist or an internist. But as I mentioned before, if it was 3 years ago, I would have put my father on that, and I would have loved to have some quality time with him rather than, the time I did have the last year and a half, which was, it was very difficult. So sure. I would have done anything to put my dad in this trial.
Wow. Thank you for that. Yeah, my mother had a similar, she was a caretaker for her mother, and it was the same thing, accusing of stealing and worse. And it was just not the same person at all. And especially my mother, she sacrificed so much to take care of her and moved in with her. And, yeah. So Joseph Below says, Dr. Baker, do you have any acquaintances or friend doctors that could join our cause? This is a good idea, not you in particular that has to come up with doctors, but if we just got a community of doctors to speak up, I do think would be a good thing. Strength in numbers, and we need the help from the professional community. So Joseph Below's asking that. Good question.
Well, Joe, I just joined the Sava Discord this past week. And I signed the petition and donated.
Awesome. Excellent.
So I talked with the head of the Discord. He's a accomplished internist from California. Wow. Who started this, and there's, as far as I know, 1,800 people that have joined the Discord. And that's a pretty big following. And big so, I think we can't do too much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any activity that's legal that you think is going to work, can't do. Yeah. Thank you very much. And then here's a question from Solomon that actually is up your alley as far as a medical question. It's about glaucoma. Dr. Baker, glad to hear you have a background on glaucoma. I was told by my eye doctor that I am at risk of glaucoma when I was 19. Do we have treatments that can permanently cure the risk?
Well, the glaucoma is optic nerve damage from elevated intraocular pressure. And so you can control the pressure, which in turn prevents optic nerve damage and visual field loss. And so, yeah, there's many treatments. There's topical drops, there's laser, there's surgery. So as the cardiologist mentioned before, anytime you pick up a disease early and treat it early, the chances of having any, long-term side effects are significantly reduced.
Excellent. Thank you. I didn't realize we're coming up on 75 minutes here. I'm so sorry. So I'm just going to get to a couple of thank yous here. We got CQ says, Thank you for all your time. I'm so sorry. 75 minutes. I'm so sorry. CQ says, thank you for all your time. Yeah, CQ says, let's not tire him out. And yeah, we got just really great questions, and I think we talked about everything. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. Dr. Baker, I can't thank you and others. There's 1,000 of the thank yous here. I'm not putting out there, but this means a lot to so many people. You know, people are trying to stop these trials, and to hear this about what's happening with the patients and how it really is like something of a miracle that you're talking about. This is like you said, this has been the graveyard of drugs. There's been no cure for this, and it's always terminal. And now it seems like there's a lot of hope. So thank you so much for bringing your message of hope today.
Joe, thank you for letting me come on the show. I appreciate the opportunity to help elevate the awareness, and I hope a couple, real life stories have motivated some people to, be advocates, and more importantly, get their family members or someone they know in the study.
Great.
Phase 3 SAVA study.
Yeah, great reminder. Thank you. Rethink-alz.com. Go to Cassava Science's website, in case I'm getting that wrong. Go to Cassava Science's website and tell anybody that has a loved one with AD to try to get in those trials. Dr. Baker, thanks so much for being here. Thank you.
Joe, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, thanks. Thank you, everyone, for me. Thanks, everybody, for coming to hear Dr. Baker talk. That was amazing, wasn't it? That was really wonderful. Please sign that petition. We'll get back. I didn't realize how long we ran here. So thanks, everybody, for participating and asking all these great questions. Again, thank you, Dr. Baker, so much. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll pick up again. We got so much to talk about. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, come back. I'll send a link before then. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Great to see you. See you tomorrow.